So you're building with generative AI, right? That's awesome. You're basically on the cutting edge. But here's the thing. This new frontier, it comes with a whole new set of dangers. Today we're diving into the essential guide for securing your GenAI applications, and we're going to move way beyond the threats we're all used to, into the unique challenges that AI brings to the table.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It gets to the absolute core of the problem. You see, unlike traditional software, AI doesn't just execute code. It interprets language. And that simple fact, it changes absolutely everything about how we have to approach security.
All right, so let's really break this down. Think about your traditional apps. They're deterministic. They do exactly what the code tells them to, no questions asked. But GenAI apps, they're interpretive. They don't just follow code, they interpret language and actually make judgment calls. Now that flexibility is their superpower, for sure, but it's also their single biggest security hole. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dissect the #1 threat out there, prompt injection. Then we'll get into how to protect your data, your tools, and frankly, your wallet. After that, we'll look at some hidden risks, shift our thinking to a security-first mindset, and we'll finish up with a super practical pre-launch checklist. Let's start with the biggest threat of all.
First up, let's talk about the big one, prompt injection. I'm not kidding. Security groups like OWASP, they've flagged this as the #1 most critical vulnerability for large language model applications. If you only pay attention to one thing today, make it this.
So what is it really? It's actually pretty simple. You give your AI its main rules, right? Its system prompt. Something like, hey, you're a helpful customer support bot. Well, a prompt injection attack is when some clever user tricks the AI into just completely ignoring all those rules and doing whatever they say instead.
And you know what's really scary? How ridiculously simple this attack is. We're not talking about complex code here. It's just plain English. But to an LLM, a phrase just like this can be a command to completely flip its personality, leak confidential info, and just abandon its original programming. Now, this attack comes in a couple of different flavors. You've got direct injection. That's what we just saw. The user just types some sneaky instructions right into the chat. But then there's indirect injection, and honestly, this one is way more dangerous. This is where your AI pulls in a document or an email or web page that has a malicious prompt hidden inside it. The AI gets hijacked by the very data it's supposed to be helping you with. So how in the world do we fight back against this? Look, there's no single silver bullet here. It's all about building layers of defense. A good place to start is using clear delimiters to separate your system instructions from whatever the user types in. Then, before your AI actually does something, you need a validation step to check if the action even makes sense. And most importantly, you have to adopt a zero trust policy. Treat all external content as potentially hostile.
Okay, let's move on, because this stuff really builds on itself. Attackers aren't just trying to mess with your AI's behavior. Nope, they're also coming after your most valuable assets. Your data, your proprietary tools, and yeah, your money. You'd be surprised how many ways data can leak from your AI app. An attacker could trick it into spitting out your confidential system prompt. The model could just randomly regurgitate sensitive training data, or even worse, in a multi-user app, one user could end up seeing another user's private data. I mean, this is a total 5-alarm fire for any application. And this is where things get really serious. When your AI can actually do things in the real world, like send an email or access a database, the stakes just get so much higher. This is where a classic security concept is absolutely essential, the principle of least privilege. It's simple, really. Don't give a system any more power than it absolutely needs to do its job, period.
What this really means is putting some practical guardrails in place. For any high-stakes action, like, making a payment or deleting data, you absolutely need a human to sign off on it first. You've got to limit how many actions the agent can take per minute, and you should always run its code in a secure, isolated sandbox.
And hey, let's not forget about the direct financial risk here. A denial of service attack on a GenAI app, it's not about crashing your server anymore. It's about making your API bill absolutely explode. I mean, just look at this chart. An attacker can turn your nice, predictable costs into a complete financial disaster in a matter of minutes. Thankfully, the defenses here are pretty straightforward. You gotta implement strict rate limiting for each user. Put a hard cap on the number of tokens, those are the little pieces of words the model processes, that can be generated in a single go. And this is critical. Set up real-time spending alerts with your API provider so you know the second anything looks fishy.
All right, so we've covered the really direct attacks, but some of the most dangerous risks are actually way more subtle. They can come from the software you depend on, or even from your own users who are just trying to see what they can get away with. Think about it. Your application is built on a whole foundation of other people's code, right? Libraries, frameworks, APIs, the whole shebang. A supply chain attack is when an attacker finds a way to compromise one of those dependencies, injecting malicious code right into the foundation of your app without ever touching your own code.
So, the most important thing you can do here is to pin your dependency versions. Seriously, don't let your application just automatically pull the latest version of a package. Lock it to a specific version you vetted. And when you're integrating with a third party, always use their official SDKs, their software development kits. They're almost always more secure. And finally, you have to be constantly scanning everything for known vulnerabilities. And then there's jailbreaking. This is when your own users actively try to get your AI to break its own safety rules. They'll use these clever role-playing games or encode their requests in weird ways, all to trick the AI into generating harmful stuff. You've probably seen this in the wild with famous prompts like DAN, which stands for Do Anything Now, that literally attempt to bust an AI out of its safety programming.
Okay, we've gone over a ton of specific tactics, but honestly, the single most important thing to take away from all of this is that you have to adopt a security mindset. Security isn't some feature you can just bolt on at the end. It's a continuous process that has to start on day one.
This means you've got to think like an attacker before you even write a single line of code. That's threat modeling. It means you actually hire people to try and break your application before you launch. That's red teaming. It means layering your defenses and logging everything so you can spot an attack while it's happening. It's a whole cycle, not just a checklist you tick off once. So with all that said, how do you actually put this into practice? Let's boil everything we've talked about down into a final pre-launch checklist to see if you're really ready to ship.
Here it is. This is your pre-launch sanity check. It covers all the critical bases we've gone over. Having strong defenses against prompt injection, making sure user data is totally isolated, applying that principle of least privilege to your AI agents, and having financial guardrails like rate limits and cost alerts all configured. Seriously, don't ship without it.
And really, this is the bottom line. Security isn't just a technical problem. It's a trust problem. Building a secure AI app is how you earn and, more importantly, keep your users' trust. Ignoring it? Well, that's the fastest way to lose everything.
Look, building secure AI is absolutely possible. It just requires awareness more than anything else. So the final question, really, is for you. Now that you know the risks, now that you know the defenses, how are you going to build AI that is not just powerful,